Look who it is. You up already?
Drinking already?
No, sir. Not gonna have a drop till 7th Heaven's back up and running.
I got to play over 4 hours of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and in this video we're going in deep to all of the gameplay elements that I got to experience. If you want to know my final thoughts, my final preview of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, there is a card just up in the top corner and a link down below. But this one is all about diving into that sweet, sweet Final Fantasy VII Rebirth gameplay. So, with that all being said, what is up guys, Jen here, hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to the channel. As always, got you covered with timestamps down below, so if you want to skip to a certain gameplay element of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, feel free to do so, but I'm hoping that you watch it all. All I ask is for you to support the channel and hit the thumbs up button. So let's dive straight in to the gameplay of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. So I'm going to start off with Queen's Blood, the card game of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and in a nutshell, I really like this game. It is easy to play, but it's going to be hard to master. There is a lot to it, but I'm going to throw some bullet points so you know what to expect from Queen's Blood. So you get to go in with a deck of 15 cards. Essentially, the way the game works is you place one of your cards on an emerald pawn to get things started. Power is then added to the lane, with new positions added depending on the yellow squares on your card. The yellow number in the top corner represents the power of the card, and the yellow squares represent the positions that your card will then add to the board. Where the position squares overlap, it will change the position rank of that square, and cards only placed on that can be equal or higher to the rank. You can overlap on opponents and claim a position there. Red squares represented on your card is an ability. The abilities can vary from changing the power of certain cards to taking away power from the opposing cards. And essentially, the match ends once the board's full, the points are then tallied up and you get yourself a winner. They're just simple bullet points of Queen's Blood, but it's a really easy flow to the game, and once you kind of get the hang of it, it can become quite addictive. There are many cards to collect in Queen's Blood, and I'm really excited to dive in more, complete the collection, and see what other cards there are out there. You can also buy cards from shops, so I assume that there is going to be quite a plethora of cards to collect. One thing I want to talk about that's really quick and very kind of like hype for me personally, and that has been added to Rebirth, is 3D item models. The fact that you can go through the items, your potions, your ethers, your phoenix downs, and you can see these models and just spin them around, look at the 3D perspective. The same goes to weapons, accessories, and armor as well. So I just really am a fan of that kind of thing, and I spent quite a bit of time just 3D looking at all my key items, 3D looking at all of my weapons and everything else in between. But I wanted to throw it in there because I think it's a real good addition to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. In Calm, you get introduced to the party level. So essentially doing side quests, going through explorations, finding discoveries, and going to certain locations will increase that party level. And with the higher level your party level is, the more abilities you can unlock in Folios. So let's move straight on to Folios. What are Folios? Well, that Maghnata books store and the automats kind of scattered throughout the world. This is where you get to improve those Folios. So essentially what this does, it unlocks latent abilities in your party, and you have access to various synergy moves and stat boosts that are more related to the abilities of certain characters. So for example, there is an ability where Cloud's Punisher stance will have a certain percentage increase on its attack power or its defense power. Let's quickly talk about photo mode. Photo mode is pretty much the same as Remake, but I think they've added frames in there now. Apart from that, it was nice to use it on the world map because there is more landscapes you can kind of look at from a different perspective and get some really nice shots of the game. But wait, there's more. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth has interwoven the photo mode into gameplay, and this takes place when you meet the NPC Snaps at Calm. He then starts a quest line to turn Cloud into a fully fledged photographer, asking you to seek out scenic locations across the map. You find them, sometimes they are marked, sometimes you'll come across them naturally, but you go to them, whip out photo mode, take the picture, return to him, and he will start to give you filters and frames for the photo mode. Something new, and I think a lot of people invest time into, is the friendship bonds. I think we know that this is all going to allude to a certain scene later in the game, but friendship bonds is here and it's quite interactive straight off the bat. Dialogue options with your characters that you find in the locations you're at will trigger friendship levels and change them. It will alter portions of the story, and if you're ever curious to see what the feelings towards Cloud is from a certain party member, hold L1 in front of them and you'll see a little emoji. They might be happy, they might be quite grumpy with you, and I'm really excited to dive in deeper with the friendship levels. Weapons and weapon abilities. I didn't dive too much into this, but essentially it seems like it's pretty much like Remake, though there is something new where you can now equip certain abilities. I don't think you get all of them as you get them and they just add to the weapon. I think you can select up to like 9 of them in this particular section of the game that I played. I only had access to equip 1, and then I think you can it works pretty much the same as Remake, where you'll have ability associated with a weapon, but then you'll have certain statistics like maybe increase your MP by 20% or something like that, and you can choose to equip from a list of them as you unlock them in the weapons upgrade section, if that makes any sense. It's a little bit different, but more or less the same what we got in Remake. Item Transmutation. This is essentially what it does on the tin. You collect various materials throughout the world, whether it's in a town or out on the world map. You can use those items to create new items like potions or maybe an antidote. And I'm assuming that as we go through further in the game, we can create better items. Cache locations. So as soon as you're thrown out onto the world map, there are so many things you can see in the distance, and you can visit pretty much all of them. And as you go there, it'll say that you've unlocked a discovery, and it's a cache location. There are 2 chests here. You know, have a look around and see if you can find them. They might contain some rare weapons or just some fodder items to help you along your way. It's a great thing to add to the world map completion, and it just incentivizes you to kind of explore the world. And I'm really excited to see what more they can add to the world of Final Fantasy VII through the cache locations. Okay, let's talk about Chadley and his combat simulator. It returns, but it's much more different here in Rebirth. You have the opportunity to practice with your characters. There is a beginner's hall exercise with each character and combat in general. I assume that you can unlock maybe harder ones once you've done that. I didn't have time to go through them all, but I assume that if you did the Barrett beginners combat simulator, that maybe there's more advanced, so you can really learn how to use him appropriately. And I'm assuming that this will unlock for both Yuffie and Kate Sith as well. So there's a lot of fun and kind of flexibility there to be had. There's also various challenges that are tied to the combat assignments. I think once you do a combat assignment, then you unlock a certain challenge to then do in the combat simulator. Maybe, I think, go against the same enemies with maybe a couple of stipulations thrown in there, and you get good items. You get the enemy skill item. I think you actually learn an enemy skill as well in one of these challenge fights, so that tells me that maybe there's more enemy skills included here in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which is always a nice thing to have from the 4 that we got in Remake. Returning is summon battles, and we had access to Titan in this one in particular, but they work much different. I just went straight in and I got my ass kicked. I could not get the health down whatsoever, and I got a game over essentially when fighting Titan. I then soon realized that we have to go out into the map to find the summon crystals. There are 3 for each area. Once you collect those, it weakens the summon. I mean, you could challenge yourself and go for Titan without any summon crystals, but if you get 3, it makes that fight much more sustainable. I don't think there's any more reward in doing that. I couldn't see, at least, but you want to collect the crystals to make that fight much more easier and then obtain the summon. Let's talk about some mini games, and we're going to talk about Mog's House. We come across one quite close to the Chocobo farm, and essentially we go in and it opens up to this massive mini game where we have to gather the Moogles and take them towards the center Mog stool of that area. This can be quite easy. It's kind of like having a dog round up sheep in a field, but there are some Moogles that are quite mischievous and they like to throw things and distractions, so you need to make your way around it and try and tackle it from the right angle, throw them in there, and then you get obviously the Mog coins return and you can trade them in and buy items from the Moogles across the world map. I'll briefly touch upon the Chocobos. So we get a Chocobo after getting Pico through the Chocobo farm subquest, and then we have to kind of do a race around the Chocobo farm. Gets us used to the controls and it gets us to kind of just use them in the world map, so we can call them very fast, hold it and cloud jumps straight on. Very quick, which is nice. We can do the scent and scour. The way that works is a question mark will appear above the head. You hold up on the directional pad, it'll do a trail, go to the trail and then dig up the treasure. You'll get things like we've seen the plate arts sweeper in the trailers, but for me in particular I got materials to kind of help improve weapons. So it is very worth to kind of stop while you come across a question mark and find the treasure, because there could be something rare there. The last thing about Chocobos is the stray Chocobo chicks. Essentially, you'll see them in the world map. They will kind of like be doing something. You follow them, they take you to a Chocobo stop. You then push up the sign and you've unlocked a fast travel location. Very useful if you are going to be one of these people that wants to bounce back and forth between the maps doing side quests. Unlocking more points of travel is always nice, and the stray Chocobos does that to the T. Lifesprings. This caught me off guard. I actually come across these without the tutorial first, without meeting Chadley while I was just exploring the map. But once I got to Chadley, it unlocked Lifesprings. So you'll be traveling across the map. Some of these will be marked if you've got the correct towers, but if you are finding them naturally, you will see a spring seeker owl, much like the foxes in Ghost of Tsushima. You follow them and they will take you to a Lifespring. It will play some beautiful music. You do a little mini game where you have to do certain button prompts to then unlock the live stream, and then what that does, it taps into the knowledge of the planet and it gives you information of the area. So in the grasslands we have Calm, the Chocobo farm, and I think the swamp. So this Lifespring in particular, it told me about Calm, and this wasn't just a line or two, this was like a paragraph and a half of knowledge of Calm. So for those that want more lore of the world, you get in it here. It incentivizes you to explore these Lifesprings and learn more and more about the world that they are crafting here in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Combat assignments, we've seen this in gameplay. There are various parts of the world map where there are stronger enemies, and then you have assistance or a call by Mai, and Mai stands for Monster Assessment Instrument. And I'm not going to spoil anything, but this is an actual character and we do get to see the character. But essentially she is going to be assisting you when you take on these enemies with a little bit of commentary, telling you a bit of facts about the monsters you are facing. And then once you've done it, these get thrown into the challenge mode of the combat simulator. Just another thing to add to this vast world intel system that we have for the world map in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And I'm finishing off with Protorelics. I mentioned this in the final preview video, but low-key, I was right about Protorelics. Each region has a story, but the end goal of each of those stories leads to the same thing. Essentially, you're gathering these Protorelics for Chadley, and something's going to happen. And I seen what one of the Protorelics were, and I know what this is leading towards, and I'm very excited. But if you've watched my videos, you know what I guessed really early on what they are, and I was right. So that's pretty much all of the gameplay dived in. I'm hoping I kept it like in depth but short and sweet at the same time. If there's something you want to know about, let me know in the comment section down below. There could have been something I missed. I have loads of footage that I can go over and see if I came across a certain thing. But if you want to know more, let me know. Thank you for watching the video. If you want to see more Final Fantasy VII Rebirth content, consider hitting the subscribe button and hitting the notification bell so you're notified of that content. Hitting the like button on the video to support the channel. Get involved in the comment section below, and until next time, I'll catch you on the flip side.